As many would know, Super Smash Bros. Brawl is the first game in the series to introduce the concept of Final Smashes, which are the character's ultimate moves that usually end up being very powerful attacks that may KO an opponent. This is especially apparent in earlier games like Brawl, though they've been nerfed slightly with each new installment afterwards. Now, keep in mind that not every character has a broken powerful attack, as very few of the roster has Final Smashes that are more, I guess, defensive in nature, as I would put it anyway. Now, are these Final Smashes perfect in their first introduction? No, but to be fair, these were the first time something like this was being used for Smash Bros, so there's bound to be a couple of creative liberties with certain characters. Some are good, like Super Dragon, Galaxia Darkness, Super Sonic of course, and a couple of Final Smashes even let you play as souped up versions of the characters, like Wario Man and Giga Bowser, which to this day is still one of my favorite sets of Final Smashes in the series. You know, before Ultimate happened. But Brawl also gave us some really crappy ones, like Diffusion Beam. I bet you forgot this was a real Final Smash up until this video. Puff Up, Landmaster, which can also double as a humorous one depending on how you see it. Like, how is this functional? And Mario Finale. The fact that this one is still used to this day really bothers me. These examples may showcase the good and bad of these Final Smashes in Brawl, but I've always been drawn into the more, let's say, unique Final Smashes. Things like Iceberg and Waddle the Army, or should I say,
my big gay dance!
These are interesting moves for their respective characters, alright, whether it makes some sense or just looks really goofy. But among these few lies one Final Smash that stands out in a more psychological way. A Final Smash that not only is unique to Brawl only, but also has its origins be a case of a character's status at the time of Brawl's release. I think we all know what I'm talking about. So let's not waste any time. Join me as I analyze the psychological terror of Luigi's Negative Zone, and how it's not only one of the more weirder Final Smashes in the series, but also look into the deeper meaning behind this Final Smash and seeing Luigi's own perspective while he does his strange dance. And with all that said and done, let's get started. As stated before at the start of the video, Super Smash Bros. Brawl's approach for Final Smashes were a lot more experimental and often took creative liberties for them to even work as a powerful move, and as should be known by now, some of these Final Smashes may receive some changes past Brawl. While some fighters stick with what worked before and thus remained mostly unchanged, others would receive changes that either actually come from a source or change their functionality completely for the better or for the worst. Luigi is one of those characters that did get a Final Smash change, utilizing his trusty Poltergust from the Luigi's Mansion series to suck up his opponents and blow them away. But before his trusty Vacuum, he only had Negative Zone in Brawl. But what even is Negative Zone and how did it function? Negative Zone is one of the very few Final Smashes that isn't some powerful attack that instantly KOs your worst enemies. Instead, it's a Final Smash that inflicts random effects towards your opponents. It begins with Luigi immediately dancing on the spot in a hypnotic and eerie way, as anyone caught within the negative bubble starts to experience some serious effects, from immense slowdown to falling asleep very easily, and even getting continuous damage from the lipstick flower. All the while this weird music plays, accompanied with Luigi's distressed voice that makes it sound like he's possessed in some way. After he finishes his ritual dance, Luigi is free to move around while his opponent struggles to break out of the slumber and sluggishness. Ideally, his super jump will do the trick fine in dealing the final blow, but a strong smash attack or potential misfire also works. Any method can do really. And well, that's pretty much the Final Smash. Now, as far as I recall, and that's saying a lot considering my memory isn't the greatest, I'm pretty sure when I first used Luigi's Final Smash, all I can really think of is, what? What the heck was that even about? Why did Luigi do this really weird dance? I was just kind of left perplexed and confused about this final smash as a whole, and I'm pretty sure that some of you out there may have a similar experience. One of the bigger mysteries, especially as a kid to me, was certainly the origins of Negative Zone, because Luigi certainly doesn't do this in any of the past Mario games, not even in Luigi's Mansion. So it was truly a wonder just trying to think of what the entire inspiration was for this Final Smash's conception and how he even got into the game in the first place. As we'll soon see though, there is a lot more to this than meets the eye. Lying beneath Luigi's strange hypnotic dance is a commentary on his character as a whole, or rather, his status as an icon. If that makes any sense, I don't know. You see, if you were to look at the trophy description for Negative Zone and Brawl, it reads as follows. As exotic music plays, he performs a dance befitting a sorcerer's incantation. A barrier envelops him, negatively impacting all in his area. This technique is a reflection of the dark side he embraced in his brother's shadow. Well, isn't that interesting? The last sentence of this trophy states that the entire sequence of Negative Zone is a dark reflection of Luigi being in Mario's shadow, which does sound pretty dark, and it even may lead to some questions such as, what does it mean by living under Mario's shadow? Well, to have a better understanding of this entire description, we have to take a look at Luigi's entire history, specifically all the way back to his first appearance in the hit arcade game Mario Bros. In Mario Bros, Luigi was designated as a Player 2 character meant to help Mario defeat the various enemies that reside in the sewers. From the very beginning of his creation, Luigi's sole design purpose was to essentially be Player 2 to Player 1. And while that is pretty obvious from a glance, it also kind of serves as a bit of a detrimental aspect of Luigi's entire character up until Luigi's Mansion. And that's because, generally speaking, Luigi has always been kind of treated like the lesser character across all of the other Mario characters up until that point. Most of the 2D Mario games, especially the mainline ones, seem to have Luigi be set as Player 2 most of the time, with only 2 games being the only instances where he's even playable without having the use of the second controller. Those of course being Lost Levels and Super Mario Bros. 2 USA, but that's like 2 games where you can play as Luigi as Player 1. And in some games, Luigi is just straight up absent. The most notable and therefore infamous of which is Super Mario 64. And this doesn't really just apply mainline games. Sometimes Luigi is absent in certain spin-offs as well, and when he does show up in games like Paper Mario, he's usually taking a backseat and not really that important. But perhaps there is something about Luigi that we don't really know. It seems like Luigi just kind of knows he lives in Mario's shadow and gains a bit of jealousy and envy for Mario taking the spotlight. This is made more apparent by his diary entry in Paper Mario, where it says here, "Once again, my brother went on an exciting journey. Once again, he went alone. It's so unfair. I remember the carefree days when we played golf and tennis and had parties. I remodeled the house and made it a secret basement my brother has no idea. It's the perfect place to write in my secret diary." And I think what's made worse to this is that Luigi is often the butt of jokes half the time. The most prevalent of which is the Mario and Luigi series, especially in the earlier games. Whereas Mario is recognizable by many, when it comes to Luigi, they all simply just draw a blank on the guy. And if that wasn't enough, sometimes Luigi's end up being either ridiculed or being treated like a lesser being, whichever one sounds a lot worse. It's just pretty depressing to see for poor old Luigi, especially since he didn't really do anything that bad to deserve any of this. Hell, even Bowser forgets his own name, simply referring to the guy as Green Stash, which would be a prevalent gag up until Dream Team. And if you thought the jokes about Luigi couldn't get any worse, well...
Call me back and he watched the matter for you. Oh, my throat.
You'd be wrong. In Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, if you were to talk to Luigi and hear one of his many stories about the Marvelous Compass, Mario and his partners, except Bobby for some reason, end up falling asleep. And in certain parts of the game, if you were to talk to Luigi's partners, they seem to mostly not really like the guy all too much, often having a reason as to why they even stick with him in the first place, from preventing Luigi from being in the bright dress again to essentially debt. Also, this infamous scene that people like to point and use this as an example of Mario's a cruel guy. That was a those were interesting times, weren't they? Now, at this point, it may seem clear as to why Negative Zone was made in the first place. Negative Zone seems to represent Luigi's envy and anger towards Mario during the early days of the Super Mario series. Luigi essentially manifests all of his inner feelings and brings them all out as an all-powerful attack move from the Smash Ball itself, which, to an extension, is basically him weaponizing his own depression in order to face off against his foes. A true representation of Luigi's entire character up to the point in Brawl. Sure, Luigi has had his starring role in Luigi's Mansion, but before all of that, Luigi was just simply player 2. Luigi became jealous of Mario, always going on adventures without him. Most people know Mario, but they don't know Luigi. He's always treated as some sort of joke to them. And it all doesn't really help any further due to his more cowardly nature compared to Mario. He has been stuck in Mario's shadow for so long that eventually at some point, he had to break. And how he does it was to simply weaponize all that he mustered into a final smash, making it not only one of the weirdest ones in the series, but also a complete manifestation of Luigi's status as a character up until that point. But putting aside all of Luigi's envy and jealousy towards Mario and the mistreatment he gets, there's also a side of him that's a lot more known: his cowardliness and his self-esteem. Focusing on the latter first, it does appear that Luigi's self-esteem is a bit more lower, but despite that, he still strives to help his brother in any way possible. And this has been made much more prevalent in Mario & Luigi Dream Team. Yes, this game did come out after Brawl, but it does contain a bit of interesting lore to Luigi that I think is pretty important. You see, during one portion of the game, you end up traveling towards the Dream's Deep, and throughout the entire section, Luigi cannot accompany you, or rather his dreamy self, and throughout the entirety of your journey throughout that, you see a bunch of words pop in on screen, and these words are directly coming from Luigi's deeper thoughts. Some of these phrases are more or less directly towards Mario. There are a lot of phrases into this part of the game, and none of it really shows Luigi as the type of person to really hold a grudge in some instances, despite what he's depicted as in Paper Mario. Instead, it simply just shows how much Luigi cares for his brother and wants to do so much in order to help him out. While yes, Luigi is a bit jealous of Mario, he doesn't really hold any ill will towards him and still loves him as a brother. And it is one of the most touching aspects about Dream Team to me that will always stick out and really marks a point in his character that makes me appreciate him a lot more. On the other side of the spectrum, his cowardliness does show up in some of the earlier games, but it's a lot more apparent with his debut title, Luigi's Mansion, his true starring role, where he is on a mission to save his brother Mario from the clutches of the mansion itself. And throughout the entire game, he is petrified, scared to face up against ghosts, reacting with fear anytime he has to go face up against a huge foe. Yet despite all of this, he's still willing to go through the mansion just to save his brother, which is honestly really sweet of Luigi. Even though he has to face off against several horrifying entities across the mansion itself, he's willing to do all of this just to save his brother. So despite his jealousy and envy towards Mario taking center stage, Luigi still loves him very much, and will do anything to help him out no matter what. No matter if it's scary ghosts or tackling bigger foes, Luigi will always be with his brother no matter the cost, even if he doesn't take center stage. With that all being said, Negative Zone only made one appearance in Super Smash Bros. Since the release of the game, Luigi has been a bit more prominent as a character, with him having his own series and starring in a few games, such as New Super Luigi U and being the main central character of Mario & Luigi Dream Team, to name a few. And in terms of his personality and his entire character, it seems like they kind of moved on from treating Luigi as some sort of joke. I mean, probably not fully, but Luigi no longer has any semblance of envy or jealousy towards Mario half the time, so that's at least a positive. And putting aside that, it seemed like a lot of characters seemed to treat Luigi with a bit more respect than what he would have gotten back in the early days of the Mario series, which is a really nice thing to see. And as we all know in Smash Bros, by the time 3DS and Wii U released, Luigi finally decides to use his trusty Poltergust to show who's boss, for better or for worse. I'm sure the sight of a Poltergust might give Ultimate players a bit of PTSD, I don't know, I'm not a competitive player. Regardless, even though Negative Zone was essentially retired and may never return again, it will always hold a special place in the hearts of those that discovered it and understood its true meaning. This somber and creepy dance Luigi has done may be strange, but it's a dance that tells a story of a man that was stuck under his brother's shadow and was really only known as the second player, the story of Luigi himself. It is the strangest Final Smash in the series, but it's also one of the most interesting that I'll ever see from this game. That brings us to the end of this video. I've been meaning to make a Negative Zone video for quite a while, and admittedly this video could have been done, or this video should have been done a little bit while back, but I'm got a little lazy, so whoopsie. But in any regards, I'd like to thank you all for watching regardless, and let me know down in the comments below what you think about Negative Zone, if it should make a comeback, and if I'm completely wrong about Luigi's characterization or something. I don't know, I tend to do mistakes a lot. Do let me know in the comments below, and as always, remember to have a happy Halloween!
The jack-o'-lantern.
Nah, that's fucking cringe. Stu cares about you.